Hello and welcome to this, our final session of day 4 of our virtual weekend roadshow. Today we're talking about professional programs, and here to talk to us about law programs in the United States is Sarah Gonzales. She is the Director of Graduate Programs at the William S. Boyd School of Law at the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. All right, Sarah, thank you, and go ahead and take it away.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm glad I can kind of wrap the sessions up with this specific look at legal education in the United States in regards to tips for applying. So through this session, you're going to get a little bit of background in regards to the overview of law programs available in the US, how to choose the right program available to you, the application process, and some tips for that process, as well as scholarships and funding available. As was mentioned, my name is Sarah Gonzales. I'm Director of Graduate Programs at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I have background in both public as a state school currently, as well as private law school in California. With over 15 plus years of legal applications and admissions, what I will be sharing in regards to tips on the application process will hopefully be able to equip you for a variety of different law programs available in the United States. Just to give you a little bit of background, when it comes to legal education in the US, there are over 200 plus law schools available to you. So you will have a variety of choices when it comes to sizes of program, specialties of program, locations of program, models, whether they go through a cohort model or you're integrated with the JD students. There certainly are a number of different programs that will meet your specific needs depending on what you're looking at studying and what you're hoping to do. There's a good even base between mixture of both female and male students when it comes to legal education. So you'll have a number of different options as you look for law programs in the US. One element I do like to point out to applicants is because there's so many options, I always recommend that applicants look at level of accreditation when it comes to legal education. There are actually 2 levels of accreditation when it comes to looking at law schools. There are regional levels of accreditation, which could be like a Western accredited program, a Northwest accredited or Northeast accredited, Midwest accredited program. This is a lower level of accreditation. With these law schools, they are typically try to make themselves seem a little bit more accessible to students or will vary in cost, but I would recommend, especially for international applicants, to really limit yourself to the highest level of accreditation, which is that national level of accreditation of American Bar Association accreditation. These schools are accredited on the national level. They meet certain parameters in regards to accessibility to students, statistics of employment. And so when it comes to being able to qualify for a bar exam or even being able to get employment after law school, the ABA accredited programs will be able to provide students more options. I always hate to hear the horror stories of someone that's gone through, a year or maybe 3 years, depending on the program, of a regionally accredited program and then have issues sitting for a bar exam or finding employment. So look for the higher level of accreditation. When it comes to really thinking about what you're looking at doing, why you're looking at studying the United States, especially in the area of law, I always take a moment to really encourage applicants to really think about, well, why are you looking at going to law school? What are you hoping to do? Are you looking at practicing law in another jurisdiction like the United States or internationally at an international firm? Are you looking at perhaps working in business or other contexts with the knowledge of understanding US law? Are you looking at, where are you looking at practicing? Are you looking at returning back to your home country with the expertise of understanding comparative law or understanding the US legal system or understanding a certain specialization in law? By taking time to think about, where do you see yourself in 5 years, in 10 years, in what area of practice do you see yourself working in? It'll really help you figure out whether or not a 1-year specialized or a general program or a 3-year program or even the doctorate program will help you with what you're trying to accomplish. And so before you even start to think about the type of program you're looking at, I would like to encourage you to think about what's your purpose? What are you hoping to do? And what are you trying to accomplish? And so when it comes to understanding the law programs available in the US, there are three types of law degrees. The first degree of law in the United States is the Juris Doctorate. I know some programs in Korea are transitioning into that model versus the traditional Bachelor's of Law program. The Master's of Law program is the second level law degree, which is typically a 1-year program. And then the doctorate, which you'll see in two different ways. You'll either see it as an SJD or JSD, but they're both doctorates in law. And so that is typically a 3 to 5 year program. And so when you think about getting legal education, some students will go to the JD program. But if you already have a bachelor's of law from your home country or one of the equivalent JD programs, most international students in the United States will skip to that level 2, which is that LLM degree. So that 1-year advanced degree in law. I'm going to go into some of these degrees in just a little bit more detail. And so when it comes to that JD degree, if you're interested, most applicants that are coming from regions where there's lots of applicants that already have an LLM program, they're considering doing the JD in lieu of the LLM. With this particular program, most law schools across the nation will offer very similar curriculum in regards to this program is designed to prepare you for the bar exam. This is typically equivalent to an LLB or Bachelor's of Law program in international countries, but in the United States, we like to offer legal education at that graduate level. And you're going to take many of the general courses, criminal law, contracts, property, torts, corporations. Where you will see this differ school to school are the certificates that are offered, the clinics available, the special institutes available within different law school programs, or maybe their type of approach. And so you will see some variances in this when it comes to the JD degree. For that LLM degree, you'll see a couple different options. So as I mentioned, the LLM is the advanced degree in law. So it's a 1-year program as compared to the 3-year JD program. With this, you will see a mixture of domestic United States students going through the program, or you'll see programs that are only available to international students, but you'll see a variety of different options. Some of the larger programs will have cohort models where it's only the LLM students going through courses together. Some of the other programs will have the courses mixed with both JD students, US students, as well as the LLM students, or even LLM students that are from the US with LLM students that are from international locations. So again, the mixture and how this looks like for law programs will vary program to program. But generally, what you will see are 3 different tracks of LLM programs. You will either see the general track. I kind of describe this as the buffet of legal education. You go to the institution knowing that you're going to be doing 24, 28, whatever those credit requirements are, and you will go and I'll take this class, I'm going to take a bankruptcy, I'm going to take a real estate law class, oh, I really like international business transactions, and you kind of have the flexibility to craft your own program. The second type of law program available within that LLM program is that bar track. And so this is a program that's designed to help students take those evidence or sub-pro or requirements that are topic areas covered by the bar to really help you not just qualify for the bar, but help prepare for that bar. But in reality, most students, even US domestic students, have to take a bar prep course. And so that's another, that'll be in addition to any of these academic programs. And then the third option, which kind of is the popular option, is a specialized track. And so with that, you're going through and taking a series of courses that are required as part of the program and earning an LLM degree in XYZ. So when it comes to those areas of specialization, you will see a variety of different specializations available: tax, dispute resolution, intellectual property, environmental law, international law, gaming law and regulation, marine law, advocacy. So there's a lot of different tracks that you can follow to have that area of specialization. So when I asked you to think about where you see yourself, what you're looking at doing, and whether or not you want to sit for a bar exam, that becomes important when you're deciding if you're going to do a general or specialized program. So I'm going to go into some of the bar requirements later in the presentation, but you will want to know that because some bars will require that you take a certain specific sequence of courses to qualify for the bar, while others will allow you to just have that LLM to qualify for the bar. So doing a specialization while qualifying for the bar is possible, but if you're going for some of those uh, states like California or New York that may have specific course requirements they would like to see as part of that LLM program, you'll have to look to and think about which bar you're looking at taking, what are their qualifications, can I qualify with a specialized degree, or do I have to go that general or bar track? So again, that's why I think 5-10 years ahead to figure out what you're looking at doing with that law degree. And then that third degree of law is that doctorate of law. So as I mentioned, you'll see it as an SJD or JSD, depending on how that law school is calling it, but it's essentially the doctorate of law. So typically for the JSD program, they're looking for candidates that are trying to enter academia. The application process will differ slightly from what I'm going to be talking about when it comes to the application process, simply because many SJD programs will also require that you have a research proposal. So part of the application process for this will require that you have an LLM program. And so again, if you know that you want to go into academia and you want to be a professor in law, and you're thinking about an LLM program, also thinking ahead at that possible SJD program, you may want to work backwards. Some SJD programs in the United States that are specializations in certain areas, or maybe have those core faculty members that you really want to work with, may require a US LLM. Most will require a US LLM. But many will require that you get an LLM from their particular institution. So that's important to know if you're looking, if your end goal is that SJD from XYZ University, look at their LLM requirements to qualify for that SJD program and whether or not you would have to go through their LLM program, or if you could go through another US LLM and then go into their SJD program. It will vary program to program. But again, I'm an advocate for do your research. And if you're attending these sessions, then you're taking that right step and being able to kind of learn more about these options and doing your research. And so you do want to look out for that. One area I do like to point out to students is there has been this trend and these emergence of these non-traditional degrees. So you'll see many of these law schools are now offering masters of studies in law or masters of legal studies. There are about 20 different names that schools have come up with, and these are alternative degrees in the topic of law that are not considered law degrees. So it's typically, you may have a candidate that background is in human resources, maybe you handle a lot of employment contracts, and you kind of want to better understand what you're looking at, but you're not looking at drafting the contract, you're not looking at actually practicing law. You just want to understand some of those law concepts. These non-law programs are great for those that kind of work in business, human resources, that want to understand legal concepts, but it is not for the practice of law. So if you have a law degree from your home country, I would advise applicants to stay away from these because these will not qualify you for a bar exam. How we phrase our legal education degrees are a little different. And so I always like to warn people that these masters of studies in law are going to be different, and they're designed for those non-law candidates. So if you have a background in law, limit yourself to the JD, the LLM, or that SJD program. One of the questions I always get from applicants is really, what's going to make me help me sit for the bar or make me competitive in the job market? I'm deciding between doing a JD and LLM degree. How do I choose between the right program? And so for this, again, I always bring the applicant back to, okay, well, where are you looking at practicing and what are you hoping to do? So for most applicants looking at practicing in the United States, the JD degree gives students a little bit more background when it comes to US legal education. You've got 3 years of not just full knowledge of US legal education, but you also have 3 years of opportunities for clerkships, 3 years of opportunities for externships. When it comes to gaining employment after a law program in the United States, having that JD degree is will provide more opportunities because honestly, you're there longer. You have more time to meet with people, to network, to attend conferences, symposiums, and figure out how you can gain work experience. When for applicants that, and many of the applicants that I know that come in from international locations are typically looking at coming in, qualifying for a bar exam, and then going back home and working for an international firm or working in another location, not necessarily immigrating in the United States. And for those cases, the LLM program is the better fit. We were doing an alumni panel last week, and one of the alumni who went through an LLM program, I would say 15, 20 years ago, is mid-career, had described this choice as kind of the luxury with the JD program versus the efficiency of an LLM program. You know, for him, his example was he really wanted to practice law internationally in his home country at a big international firm. And so he went with the efficiency of doing an LLM because you can go in, you can qualify for the bar exam, you can sit for the bar exam and pass the bar exam, you know, pending study habits, of course, but be able to go home with that qualification of being a US qualified attorney. You know, typically those that are doing the JD program, you do have to have the luxury of time, you have to have the luxury of money of being able to stay for a 3-year program. But really it's gaining, it's that cross-cultural experience that you gain from just going abroad. That's important when it comes to practice and working for that big firm. And whether or not you take the bar exam, one of the big law schools did a survey of international law firms and whether or not they valued the passage of a US bar exam from the associates applying at their firm. And only 18% said it would be nice, but what they were looking for was areas of specialty, so that firm that handles a lot of, let's say, environmental law cases can have someone that has that background to handle those types of cases. And so for that instance, an example, that LLM program was a good fit. So again, thinking about where are you looking at practicing generally. If it's practicing in the US, the JD is a good option. And then if you're looking at practicing outside, the LLM will provide a little bit more marketability, but then expertise and be more effective than the JD. So again, you're going to have different job opportunities available to you based on which program you're looking at going through. And then if for those that can't decide, there are a number of different hybrid programs out there. So this is what, again, we're doing your research is important. There are a few LLM to JD transferred programs. Typically for this, an applicant is applying and gaining admission into that LLM program. They're most likely starting the coursework in that LLM program, and then halfway through, because it's a 1-year program, they would then apply for that JD transfer program. And so typically with that transfer program, the school may be looking primarily at the grades of how well they did in their academic courses to be able to transfer that student. In this instance, many schools may not require that LSAT exam because they'll have those courses. Some schools may still require that LSAT exam. So it will vary school to school. There are a few law schools, and I'm not sure how they do it, but they do some JD LLM joint program where you can get both within 3 years. And so typically, this may be a combination of that third option of a 2-year JD accelerated program where they recognize, okay, you have an advanced law degree from your home country, will allow you to do the JD degree in 2 years and transfer over certain amounts or recognize certain units from that other program and then add the LLM to it. That could, and then call it a joint degree. So there are a number of these hybrid options for those that really want perhaps both to cover your bases, but I would encourage you to really think about, again, what is that end goal? What are you trying to accomplish? It may be super exciting to be able to collect degrees, but there has to be a purpose for what you're looking at doing. And so I would encourage you to really think about that process. And then when it comes to choosing schools, there are a variety of different options I always recommend that applicants look at. Some may be location. Maybe you want to experience at a small private school, or you want the experience of a big state school, you want to experience a metropolitan city. or you want the experience of mountains or lakes or beaches, depending on the location of the law school. Each law school is going to be different. Most law schools, again, are housed within a university system, so you'll typically have access to resources based on whatever that university system is. There are a handful of law schools that are standalone law schools that are ABA accredited, and so they will vary. One element that applicants really look at is reputation of school and faculty. And I know one of the go-tos that applicants really look at is that US News and World Report. But I always recommend that really look at that with a grain of salt. All these surveys that go out, US News and World Report is based on surveys that go out to faculty, where they tick boxes and they base it on statistics that university is giving US News and World Report. All those statistics are based on JD enrollment, JD application process, JD career development. And so when it comes to really picking the right LLM program, it really is not reflective of the LLM experience. Now, the exception to that is the US News and World Report does rank like 10 different areas of specialty. And so these are faculty that specialize in that particular area, and they rank themselves. And so that maybe would be an option to look at for some specialized areas. But I really would encourage you to look beyond US News rankings, simply because there's so much more in reputation in regards to who are the core faculty members that teach in the area or specialization, because it's really the Rolodex of the faculty members, the alumni that you involve with, the other reputable resources available for that institution that can really impact your career. Not just the reputation US News ranking of that particular program, because US News rankings change, but the solid reputation of the faculty of the particular program, the alumni base, that is a little bit more standard. Look at course selections and area specialties. So when looking at LLM programs, you will have different access points to which courses you can take. So again, as I mentioned, some LLM programs will have a cohort model where you would take these sequence of courses and you'll go through the courses together. Some LLM programs will allow you to make an exception and take a substantive JD course as part of your LLM requirements. And so we do allow at UNLV students to like take the random classes as long as we feel it complements the specialized degree. And always ask the institution and ask the schools, how accessible are some of those courses? When it comes to accessibility of courses, one of the elements that students really, that really makes legal education in the US stand out is access to some of these clinical or pro bono programs. And so clinical programs will provide students the opportunity to really gain practical experience as they're a student in the program. They may be offered as electives as part of the program. Some LLM programs may have it designed as part of the requirements for the curriculum, but look at what clinics are available to students or any of those pro bono elements. So at UNLV, we have a community law day where it's like a full day where law students and alumni will come in and actually whatever that topic is or theme for that year, they're going to be serving the public with some of these elements. And so we give students opportunities to really get some pro bono experience, give back to the community using their legal knowledge. And so you can look for some of these elements as part of that program. And then any special characteristics that may be important to you. I had a student that was really passionate about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and really wanted to find a studio that was close to campus. And so I worked and chatted with some friends and found some options for them. But going to law school in the United States is a big commitment. But you want to make sure you balance that with being able to have opportunities to really experience the United States. Are you going to be able to take some weekend trips to really experience that cross-cultural component and take advantage of being in the US, getting out of that library and to really experience the United States, whether it's traveling to different areas, how accessible are you to be able to, see other areas while you're at school. And so look for those characteristics. One other component I always recommend to applicants, I know even if you're interested in a specialized topic, choose a variety of law schools and a range of law schools that to give yourself some options, not just to really understand what programs you can gain admission to, but you can also get a better sense of what kind of scholarship offers are being offered by the institutions. And so when it comes to the application process, The cost of application is minimal, especially when you're using the Law School Admissions Council, which I'll go over in a moment. And you're just paying the tuition, the application fee for the different schools, which I would say talk to the schools directly and see if they are willing to offer an application fee waiver. It doesn't hurt to ask. But that cost of the application process is minimal. Give yourself some options and apply to a variety of schools to give yourself some options when it comes to choosing the right program, or even when it comes to trying to figure out what those scholarship options are. When it comes to finding schools, there are a couple of resources I recommend to applicants. One is the Law School Admissions Council. So I mentioned that briefly, but the LSAC is kind of the main law school organization that applications are run through for the JD program. So this will be your best friend if you're looking at applying to JD programs, because you have to apply through LSAC. For LLM programs, it's hit or miss. You'll have some schools that will take it through LSAC and some that will do it directly. But LSAC has this great directory where you can go through and you can say, I'm really looking at a small, medium, large school, maybe specializing in X, Y, and Z, and it'll come up with a list of the schools that kind of meet your parameters. What's also nice with LSAC is you can actually sign up for their free candidate referral service. So instead of just you doing the searches and trying to figure out that best fit, with the candidate referral service, you can actually input your contact information, the type of program you're looking for, and then that law school that meets those parameters can actually reach out to you as well. So it's not just basing that on your search for the program, but giving the schools the opportunity to reach out to you with that. The second option for a search that I recommend to applicants is more of the informal option. So LLM Guide is another option. For the directory, I would take it with a grain of salt because it does have a paid directory and non-paid directories. So those that come up on your list first are the ones that sponsor the website. But they do have guides and paragraphs and the types of programs. They do send a survey out to the programs each year to ask them to update their directory. So it's a little bit more up-to-date information than some of the other programs. But again, when you do a search parameter, the results will come first with the sponsored who paid for their profile, and then those that went below. So it's not as neutral as an LSAC, but my go-to, if you're interested in a specialized topic program, is the ABA directory. Go directly to the source. And so the ABA program actually has a special website, which you'll see on your screen. Feel free to pull out your phones, take a photo of that website that actually will list, here are all the approved specializations by approved programs by the American Bar Association. So this was a long page that will go through each of the different schools and the programs. And so I do that Control F function, and then you could first look and do a search and say, I'm really interested in space law. Put space in the system and they'll show you all the space law programs. And so with this one, this is just going to the source. It'll list all the certificates, all those non-traditional master's programs, as well as those LLM programs. And so when you're looking through, you'll see these different universities listed. Look for that LLM for those specializations, because as I mentioned, they do have those other masters, alternative non-law masters in here as well. But this will give you the comprehensive look at all the approved specialized non-JD programs. And so that's my go-to I've been giving people, because it's just a great one-stop shop and it's all neutral. There's no selling points. Here are the programs that are available to you. And then you click and it takes you directly to the university's websites. When it comes to legal education in the US, the classroom is typically going to be different than many candidates experience in their home country. We do use the Socratic method in most of the law schools in the United States. Again, this will differ program to program. There are some LLM programs that are much smaller, seminar-sized classes of 20, 25. There are some LLM programs that have large classes of 75, 100 plus. And so you do want to take that in consideration to what type of law experience you're looking for. You really will get wide range of students. There are some, again, some LLM programs that are just international candidates, some LLM programs that have international with domestic students. And so there is something to be said about that type of environment as well, and whether or not, because the people in the classroom are who you're also learning from. And so having that environment where you can learn from the diversity of the students that come in from a variety of countries, where diversity of experiences, diversity of age ranges really adds to when you're studying XYZ, to be able to have that knowledge, not just from the faculty member, but from your students or cohorts, that others that are in the room. In some instances, in the law school in the U.S., some grades are based majority on the final exam that you take. Again, this will vary program to program. There's some LM programs that may be more paper-based. We do mostly papers in our program with a couple faculty members, typically the full-time faculty members that will be more exam-based. But again, you want to look at that when it comes to that LLM experience and what you want in the classroom. Grading will differ school to school. You will have some LLM programs that will grade competitively, which means in the United States, we have what's called a law school curve. And so there's a certain average that has to be met for the law school, half the class above, half the class may be below. It could be a B plus, it could be a B, it could be a B minus, whatever that average is for that school. And students are graded competitively, not just how well you do, but how well you do compared to others in that classroom. Others, LLM programs may be graded completely separate. The JD students are graded this way, the LLM students are graded this way, and then there are a handful of LLM programs that are done in a pass-fail. We are pass-fail. It's about learning the content and not necessarily competing for that grade. And so for our gaming program, we're a pass-fail program. We kind of stay out of the competitiveness of that component. But again, this is where doing your research, trying to figure out the best option for you comes into play. When it comes to being licensed to practice, and again, I encourage applicants to really think about this early. We again like to be a little different. There are, we don't have a national bar exam. There is movement towards multi-state bar exams, but you will want to think about where you're looking at practicing and where you're looking at going to school, and so that you can meet the qualifications for that. One of the great websites I always recommend is ncbex.org. It's a really comprehensive guide to many of the different bar exams available. The most popular bar exams will be California and New York. That is changing. It's just a lot of people want that recognition of having passed one of those two bar exams. There are approximately 35 of the 50 plus states available, the 35 that will recognize an international first degree of law. So you do have a number of different options available to you. California and New York are just two of the most popular options because people like those two cities or those two regions. But you want to think about those course requirements. Students can also sit for a number of the different states. And where you go to school is not directly linked to where you can sit for the bar. And so there are plenty of students that will go to school in other locations and still sit for the California or New York bar. So you do want to think about this, but know that you've got options when it comes to being able to do that. And this is a big decision. Sitting for the bar is not like might as well since I'm in the US, because it is expensive to register for it. You have to pay for the bar exam itself, plus you have to pay for the prep courses to prepare you for the bar exam. So that in itself is couple $1,000s. So you do want to think and make a conscious decision on whether or not you want to sit for that bar exam, because the statistics for candidates passing the bar exam, even for domestic students, it's a challenging bar exam. So you do want to think and be practical when it comes to what you want to do and whether or not you want to take it. When it comes to the application process, you are going to see a variety of different options. You will see law schools that will have very strict deadlines that will be as early as January. So this is great that you're doing this session now so you can prepare for those applications that are due soon. And then you will have other with rolling admissions, which means they will review applications as they come in and then close the applications once the program fails, or some may still accept them into the summer. It will really vary. I always recommend applicants take a step back. There are application components that will take much more time. So you do want to make sure you build kind of a timeline in how you want to prepare for that. So the examination, so let's say you wanted to do that JD program, studying for that LSAT exam is very important. That LSAT exam is going to determine not just whether or not you can gain admission for the program, but scholarships are based on GPA and LSAT. And so the higher you get above the average of that particular law school, look at the law school's average. If their average is 160, any increment higher to that, then it's possible that you get scholarship with a good GPA. And that can vary from a couple $1,000 to full tuition or full tuition with a stipend. So it's in your best interest to really put in the work and do really well on that LSAT exam if you're interested in JD programs. For LLM programs, it's not required, so don't put in that work because it's not going to be considered as part of the LLM application process. But other tests will take time, like the TOEFL or the IELTS. You do have to show some English proficiency. So plan that in part of that process. The evaluation of transcripts or just getting transcripts nowadays will take time. And those elements that you can control, your personal statement and resume, you do on your own time. So I always recommend to applicants get those tests, start those tests first, work on those transcripts, because then the evaluation can happen or the schools can be sending that over while you are then working on the things you can control, which is the personal statement and resume. So plan that in your timeline. When it comes to application deadlines, as I mentioned, some will be due with a strict deadline in January or December, some as early as November, with majority are due around February, March time period. And then some will accept as late as June, and they may have an advertised deadline as June. My recommendation is, it doesn't really matter when that advertised deadline is, apply early. Even applying now, we've already started to review applications for fall 2021. Applying early not only gives the university your materials early to make an early decision, but it also shows that you're dedicated, you're doing the research. There's all these other ways that you're communicating that you're a good student by when you're submitting that application, how you're piecing your application materials together. Realistically, as an institution, we have more funding when it comes to scholarships available the earlier you apply. So if you're looking for scholarships, apply early because there's more funding available. If you're submitting that application late in May or June, even when there's an advertised deadline, we may have already given all those scholarships away. So you want to give yourself the best chance to not just be competitive, but to gain scholarship as you're going through the program, so apply early. Now, keep in mind, some programs may actually also have a second entry point of starting students in the spring semester. So which was typically in the January time period. And so typically the fall would be either a mid-August or late August, early September, and then the spring would be a January time period for most law schools. So think about this and the application deadline. It will vary program to program. One of the big questions I get is this mysterious personal statement. What am I supposed to cover? What is the institution looking for when it comes to writing this personal statement? Typically, the personal statement is 3 to 4 pages, but is really the most powerful tool that an applicant can have in the application process. And so in the application process, we're going to get your transcripts. We're already going to see what you've taken, what you've done. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of what courses you took and what you got in them. We're going to get your CV resume. So we'll already see what internships you've done, what you've done professionally in the field. And so the personal statement is not a repeat. Don't give us a biography of who you are based on what we're already seeing in your transcripts and what we're seeing in your CV resume, but really focus on why. Why are you applying to our particular program? What is your motivation with doing this LLM program or JD program in the United States? If it's a specialized topic program, why are you interested in studying this particular topic area? What was that spark moment that made you realize this is something you wanted to do? And so with this personal statement, we are looking for an opportunity to really get to know you let me rephrase, get to know you with purpose. You don't necessarily need to know everything that happened in your childhood, but it's about really understanding how do you think our program is going to fit when you look at your journey and what you're looking to accomplish. So it's really giving us an understanding of your motivation, your career goals. Why are you interested in the legal profession? If it's specialized, why this particular specialization? What are you hoping to do once you get out of the program? So when we're looking and reading these applications, we're looking at reading this personal statement, we're looking and assessing, is this student going to be a good fit for our particular program? And so the more you tailor that program to that particular school, it's going to identify that. We're going to see how you're going to be a good fit. So to be able to say, and I'm really super excited about taking classes from XYZ or being involved with this clinic or doing this particular program, because we want to see how we are a good fit for each other. So you want to be able to identify those issues, tailor fit it. If you're applying to multiple schools, have the same structure and story on why you wanted to be an attorney and why you want to study law in the US. But then I would recommend tweaking those elements so that it reads like it's super fit for that particular program that you're applying for. One of the big elements I also recommend is to really polish and proofread that personal statement. Not only is it giving us a understanding of your story and how we fit into it, it's also a writing sample. How are you structuring your sentences? How are you working through these components? So you do want to make sure you polish and proofread. And if you're tweaking, and this is why I'm a good fit for XYZ University, make sure you double check that, because there are plenty of instances where I will still see, and this is why I'm a fit for XYZ University. That's not my school, which makes the decision easier, but it may not be the decision you want. So again, attention to detail, polish, proofread. One of the other major mistakes I see people do is they kind of use this as an opportunity to show that they are academically qualified. So they will write a journal quality personal statement. So if there's supers and ids and citations, and it's really an essay on the topic area, you've missed the point. You've missed the personal in the personal statement. You're not there to lecture me on gaming law or my area of specialization. You're there to really tell me your story and how we fit. So avoid legal analysis. It's not a journal article. If you want to show that you're qualified, many institutions will take a writing sample, but ask them, and you can share in that component. I've received a book that someone's written in many instances, and so not required. But you can submit writing samples another way. Don't use a personal statement for that. It's your most powerful tool in the application process, so don't waste that opportunity. Oh, and one other component I do want to say, this is also the opportunity to address any red flags. And so let's say you graduated from your institution, maybe your grades the last semester or whatever, was off. It's not quite the same. Address that. Don't let us assume what was going on. Tell us what was really going on. Oh, my family was going through a health something XYZ. It may or may not impact the admissions process, but you want to be transparent, or maybe there was a gap in employment. What was going on there? Oh, I took time off to have kids. Okay. Just help us understand what's going on there, but be proactive when it comes to addressing any critical issues or red flags we may see as part of the application process. When it comes to application examinations, as I mentioned, you will have to demonstrate typically English proficiency, backgrounds in negotiation. So I always say ask the school, check with them to see if there's a waiver process for this typically. And I know there's many programs in Korea that offer English medium instruction. And so if you can get a letter from that university stating that the medium of instruction was in English, or there's other ways that you can demonstrate proficiency, some of the schools may make an exception on that. There's no scholarships or anything based on English proficiency scores. It's just making sure that you meet the minimum requirements. And so you want to make sure that you do it, but there are lots of different tests that the different schools are taking that are available. And especially in times of COVID, some have opened up to take other alternatives. And so most that I've seen so far have been the TOEFL, the IELTS. Some schools are taking Duolingo. There may be others like the Petersons or other exams that the schools were taking. Check with the programs specifically that you're applying for, because not all programs will take all of these requirements. And the ranges of admission, the scores will vary. I've seen TOEFL scores, schools take TOEFL scores from the 80s. Some, most for legal education, because it's graduate level, will require around the 100 range. So that's kind of what you want to aim for. And then if you're applying to JD programs, because the LSAT exam is offered in English, many JD programs won't require that English proficiency, because in order to meet their mark for the LSAT exam, you've got to have a good grasp of the language. So check with the programs for that, for English proficiency. And then when it comes to that LSAT, again, only required for the JD. Very important, because scholarships and admission are based on it. So do the homework to study. There's a lot of different study organizations that can help you with it. If you have access to it, I know in the US we have Khan Academy. It's completely free. It's partnership with LSAC. And so that's a good free prep course if you're looking at studying for that. And I think it's available in some locations, but again, I would double check on that, or there's third-party organizations as well. And LSAT is not required for LLM programs, so don't sit through it for LLMs. One of the other application components that take time are those letters of recommendation. I always recommend to applicants, be strategic. Letters of recommendation is another opportunity for us as an institution to get to know you, get to know the app through the lens and eyes of somebody else. So there is no perfect recipe because it depends on your background. A young candidate who just graduated, I'm going to be thinking it's going to be mostly a faculty member or administrator, someone that supervises a thesis, an internship supervisor. But if you've been practicing for many years, then I'm going to be looking for more professional recommendations. So be strategic in who you're choosing, be driven by the content and not by the title, fancy title of someone. Because if they're just confirming that you attended, that's not really adding to the application. And then again, law school admissions counsel is your go-to if you're applying online. And then evaluation agencies is one element that may delay about an application. So you do want to think about this, as I mentioned, in that timeline, do this early. Some schools will do it directly and take applications, transcripts in-house and do it evaluation directly, and others will require this third-party service that can take 2-3 weeks, and with COVID can take longer. So again, start that process early. When it comes to the tuition for the programs, they will really vary, public and private schools. Don't let the sticker price of an academic program deter your application. Apply to a variety of programs, from things that look cheap to those that look expensive, because those that are on the higher end know they're expensive, typically provide more scholarship that can vary from quarter to half off. So give yourself options and apply to a variety of programs and not just the sticker price, because some of those cheaper schools may look cheaper, but they may not offer scholarship because they know they're cheaper. And then when it comes to sources of funding, you've got a variety of options. I describe this as internal sources of funding and external sources of funding. So internal would be what the university gives you, and then external would be these third-party organizations that you can supplement, whether it's living expenses or the cost of tuition, but they will have different deadlines to look out for that. Just to give you a little bit of background, at UNLV, we've got a $5,000 scholarship that's automatically considered. So you will have some scholarships you don't even have to apply for. You're just automatically considered, and then our full tuition scholarship will require additional essays. So look at the institutions you're applying for and see if there's another form you have to fill out or another essay that you have to submit in order to qualify for some of those scholarships, but check with the schools to see what those steps are. And then external scholarships available, many of them are available on the website. This is my community service. I don't care where you go. This is a way to look for some of those options to you. And then just some background information on UNLV. Our background or specialization is in gaming law and regulation. We are a state school, so we're mid-range when it comes to those tuition and fees. If you're interested in learning more about some of these other law programs, I am working with 2 other groups of law schools. So this is an opportunity to meet with 30 different law schools across the United States. And I think some of this information will be shared on social media. And then I want to make sure I open up for questions as well.
Thank you, Sarah. We've got a couple of minutes for questions, and let me get right to them. So one question was, does taking the LSAT multiple times affect competitiveness?
Not necessarily. It actually can help improve it. So depending on what your scores are. So if we see, oh man, you totally bombed that LSAT that first time, but then you really knocked it out of the park the second time, not only does it show what that LSAT score is, but the fact that you were able to overcome, study really hard, and really improve that score by that 10, 15, 20 points, whatever the case it may be. It really, most schools now will take the highest score versus an average of the score, but we get access to all the scores that you've taken. So the fact that you sit down for an LSAT and one of those boxes can say cancel the score is a little intimidating before you've even taken it, but it really can be to your advantage if you don't do well and then show that you've overcome it and done really well in one of the subsequent tests. And so again, it varies in the context. How well did you improve? If you've taken it 10 times and you don't really improve, that also shows something. So it's all within context of what you're doing with it.
Great. And we have time for just one really quick question. in-person training and face-to-face discussions and networking are crucial components of law education. How are you training your law students during this time, given the restrictions due to the pandemic?
Sure. So I know for me at UNLV, I've started a Mondays LLM conversation series. And so with this, I have alumni that Zoom in from all over the world. I've got one from Greece logging in later on in the spring term, another one from East Coast. So it's really taking advantage of having COVID to provide this opportunity to not just have students connect with alumni, but see examples of where they could be in 5, 10 years, and then network at the same time. So many of the schools are taking advantage of the kind of these elements to host symposiums, to host these conferences and events in that virtual format where people can log in from wherever. And then I'm using it to personally connect all of our students to some of the great alumni. So students are taking advantage of it. But you've got to take your lemons and make lemonade.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that great presentation. That's all the time we have today. Again, thank you very much for joining us. And we have your contact information, and this will also be available online later. We also want to make sure to remind our audience that we have our virtual roadshow, and they can access the video at this link. So be sure to check that out. And don't forget that tomorrow we also have our the last day of our virtual week and roadshow, tomorrow, talking about community colleges and intensive English programs. Thank you very much and have a good night and good luck to everyone.